Jai Shri Ras Vihari Niju Ki Jai Ho. Sab Vaishnavan Ko Jai Shri Krishna. Today is day 21, Braj Kishori Seva Trust, reading Shri Hariraji Bade Shiksha Patr, letter 5, verses 1 to 4. Summary of letter 5, which has 10 verses. Shelter, grace and humility. This fifth letter explains the heart of the path of grace, the mood of separation, humility and surrender to Sri Acharyaji's lotus feet, tells us what to do if we can't find devotees to teach us the path, and thus how to avoid anxiety. The fifth letter of instruction describes how the Lord may be experienced in the heart through the mood of separation. Humility is the way to achieve this, and humility arises from a burning desire for Him. In the preceding chapter we saw how when one surrenders to Sri Acharyaji's lotus feet with body, mind and wealth, and makes the constant repetition of the 8-syllable prayer one's only goal in life, then Sri Acharyaji blesses that soul with true heartfelt humility and piety. Verse 1. Always, with the sweet pangs of separation, cultivate sentiment for Sri Krishna, who eternally resides in Sri Swaminiji's heart and is a treasure house of grace. Tika 1. The nectar form of Sri Hari should be sought through the sentiment of separation from him. Here, this doubt may arise. Sri Krishna appeared in Vraja, everyone knows this form, but now you are telling us to cherish the nectar form of Sri Krishna. Is this a separate form? And if so, where does he live? How to develop love for him? To appease that doubt, the teaching is here. Krishna has two forms. One, Kriyatmaka, for the purpose of performing divine acts, and the other, Bhavatmak, the nectar form, for the purpose of generating love in the devotee's heart. It is this second form that appeared as Sri Yashodaji's son. This Sri Krishna's pastimes can also be seen as of two types, as an infant and as a youth. He played as an infant in Sri Gokul and as a youth in Sri Vrindavan. So make service to Sri Krishna in his child form and contemplate him in his youthful form. On this very subject, Sri Gosaiji has written, the Lord of Gokul is to be served always whilst knowing him to be the soul of everyone and everything. That Sri Krishna is to be forever contemplated, who lives in Vrindavan and sports with all the gopis. Following these teachings, Sri Krishna's childhood pastimes are in the form of Sri Navaneet Priyaji, and his intimate adolescent pastimes in the form of Sri Govardhanaji. That form of Sri Krishna who is adored with the deep emotion of painful separation from him resides in Sri Swaminiji's heart. When you contemplate this loving mood of Sri Swaminiji, you would wonder, how does Sri Swaminiji express her love to Krishna? How does she praise him? What pastimes does she make with him? If you ponder upon these sentiments, Sri Swaminiji, who is an ocean of grace, will become pleased and bless you with the gift of such sentiment yourself. Then only can you experience this nectar form of Krishna. Indeed, this is the only way to gain this experience, because Sri Swaminiji resides in Sri Krishna's heart, and Sri Krishna's consciousness is exclusively fixed upon her. Surrender to Sri Swaminiji and then immerse yourself in thoughts of nectar Krishna, for whom Sri Swaminiji pines in separation. When Sri Swaminiji is pleased and blesses you, then alone will the Lord allow you to experience him. Verse 2. Souls on this path of grace are most fortunate that the nectar-filled Lord's lotus face, his fire form, has appeared to Sri Vallabhacharyaji. Therefore, in this path, cool devotion is not useful. It is when devotees burn with the fire of separation that the Lord showers his grace. Tika 2. I am not so fortunate as to experience this divine mood of burning in separation from my Lord, because it can be realized only in the heart of one who is truly humble in service to the Lord. This consciousness of service to Sri Krishna with true humility is very difficult to attain and practice. It is taught that a valued servant's only desire is the contentment of his master, and never his own. There is an example of this in the story of Padmanabh Dasji. One day when Sri Acharyaji was about to take his meal, a merchant who had been robbed on the way came crying to see him. Padmanabh Dasji stopped him from saying anything and replaced all the money he had lost, even though he had to take a loan to do so. Padmanabh Dasji did not allow the merchant to bother Sri Acharyaji in any way. This level of selfless service is very difficult. There is also a well-known chapter of humility in the 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam that describes Sri Krishna's intimate pastimes with the gopis. When Sri Krishna disappeared from their presence, the gopis imitated his pastimes and sang his praises, thereby becoming worthy of humility and total surrender. I have not realized this path of service, nor am I humble. all totally surrendered, and so to experience this burning fire of love for the Lord is very difficult. This is the essence of Sri Vallabhacharyaji's path of grace, so do not compromise it for a mood of cool devotion. Recall Sri Kumbandasji, who missed just one single opportunity to have the Lord's sight in the temple and so sang, "Oh, how many days have passed since I have seen my Lord, Kite din again, Shama bin Adek." When such a mood of urgency and devotion occurs, you may experience the spiritual mood that is the essence of the path of grace. Verse 3. This devotional fervour throws light on the zenith of humility, and the Lord, who is the friend of the humble, blesses such a soul and appears directly before them. Tika 3. Now I will reveal the way to true humility. First of all, there will be mental agony, a realizing that my whole life is passing, and I have not yet experienced the Lord of Lords, who is directly visible within the path of grace, because I am devoid of good qualities. When this kind of feverish agony is felt in the heart for the Lord, it burns away all impurities. The heart is full of the sinful activities of body, speech and mind, and sullied by lust, anger, pride and envy. But when this burning desire appears in the heart, it destroys all these faults. Thereafter a state of true humility is reached, and the bodily condition totally changes. The fluctuation of happiness and sadness, and the physical craving for food and drink, and the sensual satisfaction all disappear. When this occurs, the light of the Lord begins to shine, and in the heart, because the Lord is the friend of the humble, and on seeing the humility of an embodied soul, becomes compassionate and showers his mercy. There are several examples of this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Draupadi humbly took shelter in the Lord, he protected her honour. When Gajendra humbly took shelter of the Lord, he went there to save him. In the above-mentioned 5 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Sri Krishna's intimate pastimes with the gopis are described, the perfection of this mood is explained concerning the humble surrender of these Brajabhaktas. In this way the gopis sang of Sri Krishna and called out to him. Whilst thus craving for his sight, they began to weep profusely. Then in their midst, directly before them, appeared the beloved Lord, with his lotus face all smiles, and wearing silken yellow cloth and beautiful flower garlands, his beauty making even the Lord of desire him. The Lord stays far away from the egotistical, but appears to the humble and lives in their hearts, letting them experience the bliss of his proximity. First, one must crave for the Lord with burning desire. This leads to humility. Humility will be described more closely in the next verse. Verse 4. Humility will arise from the emulation of Sri Swaminiji's intensely burning love for Sri Krishna. This devotional mood can be attained by taking shelter of Sri Acharyaji's lotus feet, which embody this fire of separation. Tika 4. The perfection of your humility lies in Sri Swaminiji's hands, because it is she who grants this mood of separation. Therefore it is only when she showers her grace that you may experience this burning desire for the Lord. Ponder upon the attainment of such devotional sentiment as revealed by the gopis, and not just through your imagination. Do not do this whilst making service to your Lord, but when you have completed it. Surrender fully to the lotus feet of Sri Swaminiji, and understand her mood of separation, as described in the Venu Geet, or Song of the Flute, and the Yugal Geet, song in pairs of verses, etc. Know Sri Acharyaji's form to be that of this fire of separation, and reflect upon this form and his devotional mood. When you are fully surrendered to his feet, you will perfect this feeling. Know how to make this surrender will be described in the next verse. So we complete our reading for today at the end of verse 4, and tomorrow, day 22, we'll be reading verse 5. Aaj ke Anand ki jai. सब वैष्णवों को सादर सप्रेम सनंद सदैन्य जय श्री कृष्ण। श्री आचार्य जी की जय, श्री गोसाई जी की जय, श्री गोपी जन की जय, श्री श्री रास बिहारिणी जी की जय हो जी।